But long before I had the name John Wayne, I was going to school in Glendale, and I had a dog named Duke.
John Wayne was more than just a Hollywood legend, but behind the scenes, stories swirled for decades. Rumors no one could ever quite confirm. Until now, after years of silence, his former secretary is finally speaking out, and what she has to say might just change the way you see the Duke forever. Join us as we uncover the truth behind the whispers. The man behind the name. Before the world knew him as John Wayne, the man behind the name was born Marion Robert Morrison on May 26, 1907, in Winterset, Iowa. He would later become one of the most iconic figures in American cinema, but his beginnings were humble and far removed from the glamour of Hollywood. Marion was the first of two children born to Clyde Leonard Morrison and Mary Alberta Brown. His father, Clyde, worked a variety of jobs, including as a pharmacist, and his mother, Mary, was a homemaker who devoted her time to raising the children. Life in Iowa during the early 1900s was simple, but not always easy. When Marion was around 7 years old, his family made a big decision to move west, hoping for better opportunities. They relocated to Lancaster, California, and then, not long after, moved again, this time to Glendale, California. Settling in Glendale would prove to be an important step for Marion. One of the first things that made Marion stand out wasn't his future film career, but rather a dog named Duke. The name stuck, and Marion began to go by Duke more often than his given name. In fact, he liked it so much that he even asked teachers at school to call him Duke instead of Marion. In school, Duke was not only well-behaved, but also smart and athletic. He attended Glendale High School, where he stood out in both academics and sports. He played on the football team and quickly earned a reputation as a strong and skilled player. His talent on the field paid off when he won a football scholarship to the University of Southern California. This was a huge accomplishment, especially during a time when scholarships were rare and college was out of reach for most families. At USC, Duke joined the Sigma Chi fraternity and continued to shine on the football field. He played as an offensive tackle and took his education seriously. Things were going well, and his future seemed set for success. But during his second year at the university, everything changed. He suffered a serious injury while body surfing, which left him unable to continue playing football. As a result, he lost his scholarship and could no longer afford to stay at USC. The setback was painful and unexpected, and it forced Duke to rethink his plans for the future. And that's where things really start to get interesting, because next, Duke lands his first big role and takes his first steps toward becoming John Wayne. From background extra to legend. After his football injury forced him to leave college, Marion Morrison found himself working behind the scenes in the film industry. He took a job as a prop boy at Fox Film Corporation. At first, his tasks were simple: moving props, setting up scenes, and helping where needed. But Duke wasn't just there to earn a paycheck. He was paying close attention to everything around him. He watched how actors performed, how directors gave instructions, and how movie sets were managed. It wasn't long before Duke caught the attention of director John Ford, one of the most respected filmmakers in Hollywood. Ford saw something special in the tall, hard-working young man with a strong presence. He started giving Duke small, uncredited roles as an extra in several films. These early parts were brief and didn't give him much screen time, but they were valuable. Ford became a mentor to Duke, giving him advice and slowly helping him build confidence in front of the camera. The real turning point came in 1930, when director Raoul Walsh decided to cast Duke in a leading role. Walsh was making a massive Western film called The Big Trail, and he needed someone who looked like a true frontiersman. He chose Duke for the role of Breck Coleman, a brave and determined wagon train scout. At the time, Marion Morrison wasn't seen as a marketable name for a movie star, so the studio helped him pick a new one. Together, they settled on John Wayne, a name that sounded strong, simple, and distinctly American. Because of The Big Trail's poor box office performance, Wayne's career didn't take off immediately. Instead, he spent most of the 1930s working in low-budget films, often westerns. In some of these films, he even played a singing cowboy, a popular character type at the time. Everything changed in 1939 when John Ford cast him in a film called Stagecoach. This was a big-budget western with a strong script, a talented cast, and serious studio backing. Wayne played the Ringo Kid, an outlaw who joins a group of strangers on a dangerous stagecoach journey through Apache territory. The moment Wayne appeared on screen, riding in from a distance, spinning his rifle, and staring directly into the camera, audiences took notice. It was a powerful entrance, and it helped make him a star. From that point on, John Wayne's career took off. He began to land more serious roles, and was often cast as the rugged, stoic hero, the kind of man who didn't talk much, but always got the job done. His characters were strong, dependable, and deeply patriotic. These roles connected with audiences across America, especially during a time when the country was facing major events like World War II, Hollywood, romance, and secret affairs. John Wayne was best known for his roles as a brave cowboy or a fearless soldier, but away from the cameras, his personal life was just as dramatic as the movies he starred in. Known for his tough guy image, Wayne also had a softer, more passionate side that showed through in his relationships. While he often kept his private life quiet, there were plenty of rumors and real events that followed him throughout his long career, especially when it came to love, marriage, and the women in his life. One of the most talked-about chapters in John Wayne's personal life involved Marlene Dietrich, a German-born actress known for her beauty and charm. Dietrich was already a huge star when she met Wayne, and the two first worked together on the 1940 film Seven Sinners. Their chemistry on screen was immediate. Wayne played a naval officer, and Dietrich played a sultry lounge singer. Their scenes together were full of energy and flirtation, which audiences loved. But it wasn't just acting. Wayne and Dietrich were also involved off the screen. Despite the fact that Wayne was married at the time, the two began a romantic relationship during the filming of Seven Sinners. Their affair was one of the worst-kept secrets in Hollywood. While neither of them spoke about it publicly during their lifetimes, people on set and close friends often hinted that the relationship was real and passionate. The two stars continued to work together on two more films, Pittsburgh and The Spoilers, both released in 1942. Again, their on-screen chemistry stood out, and fans couldn't help but notice how natural they seemed as romantic partners. Even after their romantic relationship ended, Wayne and Dietrich remained close friends for the rest of their lives. They respected each other deeply, and their brief love story became a lasting memory in Hollywood history. But Marlene Dietrich wasn't the only woman connected to John Wayne through rumors of romance. Another name often linked to him was Gail Russell, his co-star in the 1947 film Angel and the Bad Man. Wayne was still married during this time, and although both he and Russell denied any romantic involvement, people around them suspected otherwise. Their close friendship, long phone calls, and time spent together off-set led many to believe that something more was going on. Russell, who struggled with alcoholism and personal problems, found comfort in Wayne's support. Whether it was a romantic relationship or just a deep friendship, it added more weight to the whispers about his infidelity. Another alleged affair was with Merle Oberon, a well-known actress who had roles in popular films throughout the 1930s and 1940s. Their relationship reportedly began in 1938 and is said to have lasted until 1947, overlapping with Wayne's second marriage. Again, the full truth was never confirmed, but people close to Wayne claimed that he had genuine feelings for Oberon and spent significant time with her when he was away from his family. While Wayne's romances and affairs drew plenty of attention, his three marriages told their own story of love, pressure, and heartbreak. His first wife was Josephine Alicia Sáenz, the daughter of a Panamanian consul. They married in 1933 and had 4 children together: Michael, Mary, Patrick, and Melinda. Josephine was a devout Catholic and came from a respected family, but their marriage was full of challenges. Wayne's growing fame and demanding film schedule kept him away from home for long periods. There were also rumors of cheating, which caused deep tension in their relationship. The couple eventually separated and divorced in 1945. Not long after, Wayne married again. His second wife was Esperanza Bauer, a Mexican actress he had met while traveling. Their marriage was known for being tumultuous and filled with arguments. Esperanza was reportedly very jealous, especially when Wayne was working with other female co-stars. Their fights were often loud and public, with Esperanza accusing Wayne of having multiple affairs. Their marriage lasted just a few years before ending in divorce in 1954. Many of Wayne's friends said this relationship was the most stressful time in his personal life. Wayne's third and final marriage was to Pilar Palete, a Peruvian actress he met in the early 1950s. They married in 1954, not long after his divorce from Esperanza. Together, they had 3 children, Ethan, Marissa, and Aisa. At first, their marriage seemed more stable than his previous ones. Pilar was supportive of Wayne's career and even stepped away from acting to focus on their family. However, as Wayne got older and continued to work long hours, their relationship began to suffer. By the early 1970s, the couple separated, although they never officially divorced. They remained legally married until Wayne's death in 1979, but he was living with his former secretary, Pat Stacey, in his final years. Despite his rocky relationships and ongoing rumors, John Wayne always tried to present himself as a loyal family man. He remained in close contact with most of his children and often spoke proudly of them in interviews. Still, the emotional toll of his personal life was something that followed him throughout his career. As much as Wayne tried to keep his personal life private, the next chapter in his story would drag him into the heart of a national crisis, and it all started when America went to war. The war he didn't fight. When World War II broke out, and the United States entered the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, millions of American men either enlisted or were drafted into military service. John Wayne was 34 years old at the time, older than the average new recruit, but still young enough to serve. He was also healthy and physically fit, which made many people wonder why he didn't put on a uniform and go to war like many of his fellow actors, including close friend Jimmy Stewart. The truth is, John Wayne never enlisted in the military during World War II. For some, this was disappointing. He was often seen as the ideal American man on screen, a fearless cowboy, a determined soldier, someone who always fought for what was right. So why didn't he go to war in real life? There were several reasons, and they were not entirely under his control. First, Wayne received a draft deferment due to family responsibilities. At the time, he had 4 children with his first wife, Josephine Alicia Sáenz, and that allowed him to delay military service. But there was also pressure from Republic Studios, the company that had Wayne under contract. Wayne was their biggest star and a major source of income. If he left to fight in the war, the studio would lose its most valuable asset. Republic Studios worked hard to keep him out of the draft. The studio reportedly contacted the government to ensure his deferment was extended. They also threatened legal action against Wayne if he tried to break his contract to enlist. This left him in a difficult position. Wayne had a strong sense of patriotism and wanted to contribute, but his career and personal obligations made it nearly impossible. Despite these barriers, Wayne didn't sit back and do nothing. He wrote letters to his close friend and mentor, director John Ford, who had joined the Navy and was working in a military film unit. Wayne begged Ford to help him find a role in the war effort. He also submitted an application to the Office of Strategic Services, a secret government agency that would later become the CIA. The OSS was involved in undercover missions and spy work during the war. Wayne hoped he could serve in this way without violating his contract with Republic Studios. Unfortunately, his OSS application was never approved. It's unclear why, but many believe the studio may have interfered or that Wayne's Hollywood image didn't match the agency's needs. Either way, he was left feeling powerless and increasingly frustrated. As the war went on, the guilt of not serving began to weigh heavily on him. In an effort to do what he could, Wayne volunteered to tour the Pacific in 1943 with the USO, United Service Organizations. He spent about 3 months traveling to different military bases, especially in the South Pacific, where he met with American troops, visited medical facilities, and boosted morale. He signed autographs, posed for pictures, and gave speeches. For many soldiers, meeting John Wayne in person meant a lot. He was a symbol of bravery and strength, and his presence lifted their spirits. The fact that he didn't serve in combat remained a sensitive topic for him. In later years, when people asked about it, Wayne often gave vague answers or shifted the conversation. His actions during the war were not enough to satisfy the personal standard he had set for himself, and that feeling never truly went away. But just as the war ended and Wayne's personal struggles seemed to quiet down, his career was about to skyrocket, and he wasn't done making headlines yet. The other side of the Duke. John Wayne was known around the world as the ultimate tough guy. His deep voice, towering height, and calm, confident presence made him a symbol of strength and determination. But behind the scenes, there was another side to Wayne that fans rarely got to see. He had personal habits, quiet hobbies, and even a few insecurities that made him more human than his screen persona might suggest. One of the lesser-known facts about John Wayne was that he began losing his hair in the 1940s. As he entered his late 30s, Wayne noticed his hair thinning, especially on top. This was not unusual, but for a man known for playing powerful, fearless characters, it was something he didn't want to show to the public. To maintain his screen image, he started wearing a wig. This became a part of his regular appearance for the rest of his life, both on and off screen. Most fans had no idea. The wigs were made to match his hair color and style perfectly. However, there were rare occasions when people saw him without it. One of the most talked about moments happened at the funeral of fellow actor Gary Cooper. Wayne, grieving the loss of his friend, attended the service without his wig. The moment was captured by Life magazine, and some fans were surprised to see a different side of the Duke. One that was vulnerable, natural, and real. But John Wayne wasn't just a movie star worried about appearances. He was also someone who enjoyed quiet time and personal interests, including reading. Many people were surprised to learn that Wayne was an avid reader, especially of classic literature. He loved the works of Charles Dickens, Arthur Conan Doyle, and Agatha Christie. These weren't just books he flipped through occasionally. He read them regularly and spoke about them with friends. He was also a skilled radio performer. During the golden age of radio, before television became popular, radio shows were a major source of entertainment. Wayne made regular appearances on popular programs like The Hedda Hopper Show and The Luella Parsons Show. These were celebrity interview shows where actors would talk about their latest projects and personal lives. Wayne was a natural in these interviews, relaxed, funny, and engaging. But Wayne didn't just do interviews. He also performed scenes from his movies on the radio, adapting dramatic moments for listeners at home. His powerful voice and strong delivery made him perfect for radio drama. It gave fans a new way to experience his work, especially those who didn't have easy access to movie theaters at the time. In fact, Wayne was given a chance to host his own radio series in the 1950s. The show was called 3 Sheets to the Wind and was meant to help launch a film project. In the series, Wayne played a character involved in different adventures, with plenty of action and suspense. It was designed as both a radio drama and a way to promote his on-screen roles. Sadly, the project didn't move forward as planned. The movie never got made, and the radio series was short-lived. Even more unfortunate is the fact that there are no known surviving recordings of 3 Sheets to the Wind. For fans of old-time radio, and Wayne himself, this is a real loss. It would have given a rare glimpse into another side of him, his voice, his timing, and his ability to hold an audience's attention without any visuals at all. Final years and decline. By the 1960s, John Wayne had become one of the most recognized and respected movie stars in the world. He had acted in dozens of films, won an Academy Award for True Grit, and built a public image as the strong, fearless American hero. But behind the scenes, his health was starting to fail. Years of heavy smoking, stress, and physical strain from action-packed roles were beginning to catch up with him. In 1964, Wayne received devastating news. He was diagnosed with lung cancer, a disease strongly linked to smoking. At the time, he had been a heavy smoker for decades, often smoking 5 or more packs of cigarettes a day. The diagnosis shocked his fans and worried those close to him. It also came at a time when talking about cancer publicly was still considered rare and even taboo. To try and stop the disease, Wayne underwent major surgery. Doctors removed his entire left lung and 4 ribs in a difficult and painful operation. It took a long time for him to recover. Breathing became more difficult, and he no longer had the physical stamina he once did. But Wayne didn't let it stop him from working. Within a year, he was back on screen, continuing to act in physically demanding roles despite the risks. Even more remarkable was that Wayne chose to go public with his diagnosis and surgery. He did interviews and made public statements, encouraging others to get screened for cancer early. At a time when many celebrities hid their health issues, Wayne's openness was seen as brave and honest. He even helped reduce the stigma around cancer by speaking plainly about his experience. As a result, he inspired many people to take their own health seriously. For a while, Wayne seemed to beat the odds. He continued making movies through the 1970s, though his pace had slowed. His final film was The Shootist, in which he played an aging gunfighter dying of cancer. The role was deeply personal and emotionally powerful. Although the character's story was fictional, many viewers saw strong parallels to Wayne's real life. The Shootist became a quiet farewell, even though Wayne and the public didn't know at the time that it would be his last film. Then, in 1979, just a few years after surviving lung cancer, Wayne was diagnosed with a second form of cancer, this time in his stomach. This diagnosis was even more serious. The cancer had spread by the time it was found, and surgery was no longer a reliable option. Desperate to fight the disease, Wayne agreed to try an experimental cancer vaccine that was being developed at the time. It was a long shot, but he was willing to try anything that might give him more time. Despite the treatment, Wayne's condition grew worse. He became weak, lost weight, and could no longer travel or work. In his final months, he was mostly confined to his home in Los Angeles. During this difficult time, he was cared for and comforted by Pat Stacey, his longtime companion and former secretary. Stacey stayed by his side, helping him through the pain, the medications, and the slow decline that came with the illness. She later described this period in her book, Duke: A Love Story, offering a deeply personal view of Wayne's final days. According to Stacey, Wayne faced his final battle with strength and quiet courage. He didn't complain much and rarely talked about his fear. Instead, he focused on the people around him, his children, his grandchildren, his friends, and Stacey herself. Even though he was physically fragile, he still had moments of humor, warmth, and thoughtfulness. He remained the Duke in spirit, even when his body could no longer keep up. John Wayne died on June 11, 1979, at UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles. He was 72 years old. His death made headlines around the world. Fans mourned the loss of a man they had admired for decades. Tributes poured in from fellow actors, directors, politicians, and ordinary people who had been touched by his films and his public strength. After his death, his family and friends continued his legacy in various ways. His children set up the John Wayne Cancer Foundation to support research, education, and awareness about cancer. Wayne's own experience became a driving force in the fight for better detection and treatment options. His decision to speak openly about his illness helped others face their own diagnoses with less fear and more hope. Pat Stacey remained quiet in the months after his passing. She eventually published her book in 1983, revealing many of the emotional and personal moments she shared with him during those final years. For many fans, her account was the most intimate look they had ever seen of John Wayne as a real person, beyond the screen, beyond the image. Pat Stacey's chilling revelation. In the final years of John Wayne's life, a woman named Pat Stacey became one of the most important people in his world. She was not only his secretary, but also his romantic partner. She saw Wayne during his last moments of life when he was no longer the towering movie hero that fans saw on screen, but a man facing his deepest fears and physical decline. After Wayne's death, Pat Stacey waited a few years before deciding to share her story. In 1983, she published a book titled Duke, A Love Story. The book gave fans an intimate look at John Wayne's final years. It was full of personal memories, emotional moments, and private conversations. But what stood out most was a chilling claim that caught everyone's attention. Stacey believed that John Wayne's cancer was not random. She thought it was caused by radiation exposure from a movie he filmed nearly 25 years earlier. The movie in question was The Conqueror, a historical epic where Wayne played the role of Genghis Khan. The film was produced by Howard Hughes and directed by Dick Powell. At the time, the location for the movie seemed ideal for a desert setting. The cast and crew traveled to St. George, Utah, near the border with Nevada, to shoot most of the outdoor scenes. What they didn't know, or weren't told, was that the filming site was located downwind from a U.S. government nuclear test site in Nevada. In the years just before filming, the government had conducted several atomic bomb tests in the area. The radioactive dust from these explosions had been carried by the wind, and it settled over large parts of Utah, including where the Conqueror was shot. Despite warnings from scientists and some local residents, the U.S. government publicly downplayed the dangers of the fallout. Officials claimed that the radiation levels in the area were low and that there was no serious risk. Based on this information, or lack of it, the production team went ahead with filming. The cast and crew spent several weeks in the radioactive desert, filming scenes in the hot sun, surrounded by dust and sand. To make things worse, large amounts of dirt from the set were later shipped back to Hollywood to film additional scenes in a studio, meaning even more potential exposure. At the time, no one seemed overly concerned, but years later, the consequences became painfully clear. According to reports and interviews over the years, 91 out of the 220 people who worked on The Conqueror, including actors, crew, and other personnel, developed cancer. Many of them, like Wayne, eventually died from the disease. Other well-known actors from the film, such as Susan Hayward and Agnes Moorehead, also lost their lives to cancer. Even the film's director, Dick Powell, died of cancer. Pat Stacey believed strongly that the filming location had something to do with Wayne's illness. While Wayne had already survived lung cancer in the 1960s, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer in 1979, a different and even more aggressive form. Stacey said that Wayne often spoke to her about his fears. He wondered if that film in the Utah desert had sealed his fate. According to her, he felt haunted by the idea that something invisible and deadly had followed him for decades. Even after Stacey released her book, many in the media were hesitant to cover the full story. While some journalists reported on the connection between The Conqueror and the high number of cancer cases, the topic never received the full attention it likely deserved. Pat Stacey's voice was one of the few speaking openly about what she believed had happened. For fans of John Wayne, the idea that he may have died because of a government testing program was deeply upsetting. Wayne had been the symbol of American strength and freedom for decades, yet it now seemed possible that he had unknowingly been exposed to something that would kill him years later. Stacey's book didn't just talk about their relationship. It became a powerful warning about how the truth can sometimes stay hidden for too long. If you enjoyed this video, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss more stories from behind the scenes of Hollywood history.